Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is live in Westminster. Gary.
Well, there are reports tonight that prison managers are being told to pause the new early release scheme and the preparations for it, and real concern in parts of the prison estate that although prisons are operating collectively at a bit of spare capacity at the moment, maybe 3,000 places, you really do not want this system running hot. It only takes one riot outside prison for a lot of extra people to come in, or one riot in a prison for a wing to be closed, and things quickly to get to a full capacity place, and you don't want it there. What we saw today was Andy Burnham yet again going against a bit of Keir Starmer policy. It looks like, even though we don't know the nature of this review. And then on bus fares, we saw him actually reversing another piece of Keir Starmer policy, bringing the cap down from where Keir Starmer had put it, and consistently going against the style of Keir Starmer with this more conversational approach, but in the process discovering that when, as Prime Minister, you say, I'm looking at something, everyone thinks that must mean I'm doing something.
How quickly did they get that one wrapped?
Did well there, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's pretty good going.
The plan was to talk about a £2 cap on bus fares. Andy Burnham was asked about the early prisoner release scheme after the Daily Telegraph revealed that two of the killers of Police Constable Andrew Harper might benefit from the scheme. PC Harper died after being dragged more than a mile by their car after investigating a theft. Andy Burnham said he was now reviewing the entire early release scheme.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
Labour committed to an early prisoner release scheme the moment it came to office, saying overcrowded prisons necessitated the move. In recent weeks, thousands of victims and survivors of crime have been receiving letters telling them those convicted of crimes against them are to be released early. But if the government tries to keep some guilty of specific offences like rape or manslaughter in prison beyond their expected early release date, the Prime Minister could find prisons are very quickly full to bursting all over again.
I assume that what he would be looking at is particular cohorts, but we shouldn't kid ourselves here. First of all, for the very serious offences, they're not in this regime anyway. If you've got a life sentence or an extended determinate sentence, you're not in this regime where you're released at 50%. But if you start broadening it further, we're not talking about a few dozen people. We are likely to be talking about thousands of people who will fall into some of these other categories.
I get people laughing for going on about buses all the time.
On a visit to Bath, Andy Burnham's main focus was promoting a new £2 bus fare cap for England.
Do we pay or are we okay?
We can go for it.
The £2 cap was originally introduced under Boris Johnson, but raised to £3 by Keir Starmer, saying there wasn't enough money around to fund the lower cap.
You are bringing back Boris Johnson's policy of the £2 cap on bus fares. Is that really going to make a difference to people struggling with their finances?
It was actually my policy originally as Mayor of Greater Manchester, but I worked with Boris to take it national, and it was hugely popular because it's simple, but it saves people money every day.
The giveaway is mostly funded by a raid on the aid budget.
I think you're all in line for a pay rise after today.
Andy Burnham was asked about another giveaway he recently mentioned, raising the tax-free allowance.
Are you going to do something about that or not?
Well, it's funny these days, you can't answer a question honestly without then people reading everything else into it. It was.
You are Prime Minister.
It was, yes, but I want to answer questions honestly in this job, as I said before. I think that's all about trust in politics and doing politics differently, and I'm determined to keep working in that way. It was raised a lot, but I then went on to say, but we'll have to look at it at the budget alongside everything else. So no commitment, no unfunded promise.
He was complaining today, Andy Burnham, that when he talks about a tax, everyone seems to pay too much attention. As a former Treasury Minister, any advice?
When you're Prime Minister and everyone is hanging on every word you say, If you say, well, I'm thinking about this, people are going to assume you're going to do something about it. And if you're not going to do something about it, don't say it.
Bite your tongue.
Bite your tongue, yes.
Are you still in school this week?
Wish I could have 6 weeks.
Andy Burnham's very different style of communicating has already triggered quite a few clarifications from his team as he completes only his second full day in the job.
Gary Gibbon reporting there. Well, this programme has been covering victims' concerns since last month when they started contacting us after receiving letters warning that their perpetrators could be released early. One of them is Carol Higgins, who was repeatedly raped by her father. She joins me now in the studio. Carol, thank you very much for coming back. It must be very hard for you to talk about this, but I think it's important that we hear what you've got to say. The Prime Minister today wanted to reassure people like you that there would be a review of who gets to be released. Do you feel reassured?
The only way I will feel reassured is if the review says that it will not be releasing men who rape children. It's not acceptable.
Which is what your father did.
Yeah. Yeah,
to you.
it's very dangerous. If a man can do such a thing to his daughter, I don't know how there's anyone more dangerous than that. Well, apart from murder, what is what is more deprive us of somebody's life and soul destroying, and I will never get back them years what he's taken away from me. And the judge gave him 20 years because of the depravity of how he treated me and because of the damage he's done to me. And so for that to be taken away from me, and he will possibly only serve 7 years, it's hard to find the right words to describe.
Are you terrified?
My dad was never arrested. He was summoned to court. So he was never house searched, and he has still got his guns, he has still got the computer, he has still got his mobile phone, and he's still got the naked Polaroid pictures that he took of me and put in a metal tin box. He is going to come out to prison, from prison with all that.
So the
assessment which should be around us and our fears, needs to be round the victims' fears, if that's what they're going to do, if they're going to do the early release.
And I guess the main thing you're feeling tonight is uncertainty, because you don't know whether he will be released early or not.
It can't be. It cannot be released. And obviously, we don't know yet. And this early release scheme, has worked for lower criminals before, lower-level criminals, but for high-level criminals like him, it even shouldn't even be on the table for that to happen, because we know that prisoners come out and keep going back in more than half. Now, if that's now low-level prisoners, which is still severe criminality, when it's somebody who is as dangerous as my dad, and they're going to risk him going out and re-perpetrating again and coming back in, then the repercussions of that are going to be more severe.
And are you afraid that he might personally come after you?
I am afraid he's going to come after me. He's already said he'll effing have me. That's what he said. It took me 35 years to get him in jail because...
35 years?
Yeah, and he said, effing prove it. And now... In 2017, I had to do my victim's right to view to get him in prison. He came to a car boot sale. He got an harassment charge on me, told the police I were harassing him and accusing him of rape. And then he's come to the car boot sale in my next village, come up to my face and said, I'll effing have you, I'll effing have you. So, of course, and I know he's still got his guns.
So what's your message to
I went to see his wife last year, and she admitted that the police had never took his guns and when I was in prison.
What's your message to the Prime Minister tonight?
If he's going to do this, he needs to seriously assess the people that he's letting out, and he should never let the serious criminals out like what my dad is.
So he should serve his full 20 years?
He should serve his full 20 years, absolutely. It's an insult to, my integrity that he would even consider letting such a dangerous man out.
Carol Higgins, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Well, earlier I spoke to Mark Fairhurst, who's chair of the Prison Officers Association, and I began by asking him if he sympathised with people like Carol.
Yes, of course, and this is a prime example why the Prime Minister needs to review and ensure that there are exemptions to this early release scheme. And like previous early release schemes, we need exemptions for sexual offenders, violent offenders and those committed to serve a sentence for domestic abuse. A sense of justice needs to be served.
But you still need those places, don't you? You need those spaces in the prisons.
We do, but there are alternatives to releasing everybody who's subject to a standard determinate sentence. So, for example, if you look at the open estate, we have about 1,000 prisoners in the open estate who work in our communities, go home of a weekend, who are low risk. You could free them early, free them immediately, freeing up space. You could get rid of low-risk offenders who are serving sentences for relatively minor crimes, non-violent offenders. But to release 6,000 people between September and June and put this terror into the victims of crime, you know, the victims are being ignored here. They need to be listened to.
I mean, the options that you've just outlined seem pretty straightforward and logical. Why weren't they entertained before?
Well, that's a matter for the government to answer. But what they did do is early release schemes with exemptions, and that freed enough space up for us to satisfy the courts. We've got about 2,000 spaces free at the moment. And as I say, between September and June, under this scheme, we're going to free up another 6,000. Even if you put those exemptions in place, I'm positive we could create enough space to satisfy the courts.
And unless, you know, space is created, how bad is it in the prison service right now?
Well, listen, we've been overcrowded for the last 30 years and all of a sudden it's become an issue. But there are longer sentences, which means we need more prison space. But what we need to do long term is review sentencing policy. And the Prime Minister really needs to have a rethink about this.
He's only been in office for, what, 3 days? I mean, it's very, very early for him to deal with this potential nightmare. Was he done a disservice by his predecessor, by the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, who's just been sacked?
I think this is a product of the cuts we've faced over the last 14 years, and cuts have consequences, and unfortunately this is one of the consequences, not providing enough prison space. But that's no excuse for what's happening now. And Andy Burnham doesn't want this blotting his copybook. As he starts out as Prime Minister of this country, he needs to make the right decisions by the general public and the right decisions by victims of crime.
Mark Fairhurst, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.